honestly, this is a great market for picket equipment. We can sell our larger machines. There's big fields. There's good producers. Sorry, can you hear me better now? So I always love coming to the country. My wife phoned me earlier and told me that it was -10 at my house and 1 meter of snow. So it's nice to be here. So I thought I would just go over the machine briefly, just some tips on to make it perform a little bit better. Some common wear points, some things to look at for adjustment, just to try to get the best performance you can out of your picket. Obviously, there's options of anything you would like on the picket. You can have a front mount, a rear pole. You can build 10 meters long. We build every machine custom to the order. So if you have a specific configuration that you require, we can build it to the order. So anyways, I want to just kind of go over some of the basics of it. One is the divider system. I see often that these are taken off. The nose will dive and go in the ground and bend or break, or something will happen to the divider system. Typically the problem is the adjustment. When this rides in the soil, it's supposed to ride flat on the ground from the front to the back. And the reason for the point is just have the beams gradually go over the top and divide them and separate. That way the wheels don't run over the top of the beams. But if this is your adjustment point right here on front. So what you do is you set that on the ground and you level that flat. You loosen the bolt on both sides, and then when it's completely level, then tighten it really tight. And this should go on the ground and right up and down on the soil, so it'll stay even on the ground and divide for those tires. So there's an adjustment point here on the bottom. When this point wears out, you can loosen that and pull the point out to get more travel on that divider point. These rods are malleable. You can use a tool to slide over them, and you can bend them, and they'll stay in place. Sometimes they're let down and they go back and they get messed up. But usually with some work, you can bend them back in place. And you want them as close to the tire as you can. We want to touch the beams as least as possible. So make sure and adjust those very tightly up against the machine. One other real basic concept is the rod depth. And if the rods are running too deep in the ground, you'll dig too deep, you'll lift up too much dirt, and your beams can ride underneath the pickup head and you can miss beams in the field. It performs best when it's running as shallow as possible. So that's in the range of this cutter bar in the front is the one that's doing the actual pulling of the beams, and it should never be more than 6 centimeters below the surface, but ideally it's only about 2 to 3 centimeters below the surface. I realize that field conditions will vary, and you want to make sure and cut all of your beams. But if you have a good flat field that's been cultivated well, ideally you're just cutting the top of the hill off, and you're not touching the bottom of the row. And that rod's running as shallow as possible, so you bring up the least amount of soil into your windrow. And so that adjustment is made by this gauge wheel right here. And just take a tape measure and measure from pin to pin on this side and match it on the other side. And typically that'll keep you pretty level on your machine. There's also the option, I know on some machines, especially if they're wider, you can move the gauge wheel in one. If you have really steep contours on your fields, it helps it so it'll rotate and adjust a little bit more, but that's an option for you. One really important thing are the points on the front of the shanks. And so these points, the front of them doesn't typically wear out. It's riding above the soil most of the time. Usually the soil is broken up before it hits the front of the point. Where it wears out is on the bottom. And when it wears, it becomes flat, and it becomes more difficult for the machine to penetrate the soil. So always check on the bottom, make sure you have a sharp point, and if that point wears out, I think we have a point back here I can grab. Thank you. So when that point wears out, it'll wear out right here on the bottom, and once that's gone, it starts wearing out the bottom of your shanks. And this is T1 steel. and it's very expensive. So if you start wearing your shank out, it's much better just to replace these instead of having premature wear on your shanks. And so there's different types of points. This is called a boat point here, and it's the most common point on the machines. It typically works in any conditions unless it's extremely hard. If you do have problems with your machine penetrating into the ground, you have this point right here, what we call a shear point, and basically it's a wedge. It rides in the soil and it sucks the machine into the ground, and the only drawback of this point is you're bringing up a lot of dirt. So only in extreme cases use the suck point, and when you have to use it, just try putting 2 on, and if that still doesn't work, you can replace all the points with the suck point to get it into the ground. But you're always going to bring up more dirt if you're using the suck point. So those are some options there. There's machines with belly shanks like that head over there that come from underneath. They don't require a divider to divide in front of them, and they use a similar point to this, but it is a little different. But those belly shanks are typically where you want to put a suck point if the machine will not go into the ground. Another thing to adjust for is your pickup head. Your teeth should never touch the soil. If it's touching the soil, you're wearing out your pickup head, your teeth. It's causing a lot of strain on it, and you're picking up dirt and putting it into your windrow. And I promise the combines don't like that. So definitely keep that out of the soil. If it's really light yields, like this has been held on, I can see, and it's pretty light, so you'll want to run it about 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters above the soil. If it's heavy foliage, you run it up to 5. The higher it is, and it still picks up, the less dirt you pick up and put in your windrow. And so you do the height adjustments with these cables right here and this turnbuckle on this side and that side, and just make sure and try to lift it up equally. So that's important. Also, there's a flow adjustment on the side of the machine right here, and this is for your pickup head. And most think that we need to run this very quickly, and when you're running it quickly, it does two problems it causes. It rakes through your beans, it shells the beans and separates them from the plant, and you have field loss. And another thing of running it too quickly is you're wearing out cam tracks, your cam bearings, all of those things. It starts to wear them out very quickly. You want to run that at least half of your ground speed, and even in light foliage like this, it'll bunch them together and lift them in a bunch, and it'll be more continuous flow. You'll definitely pick up everything better. You'll have less problems with damage to your machine, and you won't lose as much beans. So 3.5 is typically what we recommend for your max speed on this flow control valve. Maybe 3.5. If you're much over that, you're probably going too fast. Even if you're going, so I've seen these guys run in these fields here, 12 or 13 kilometers per hour. Even when you're running very fast, that pickup head should be going really slow. And as long as it's flowing well, then it should be okay. You can adjust your belt speed inside the tractor cab with your flow control. And with that as well, the slower the better typically, but it just depends on how fast you need to convey it off. If it's heavy yields, if you want your windrows to stand taller, you can run it faster and it'll throw it and stack them up a little higher. So there's some options there for you in the tractor to adjust that, and that'll control your rod speed as well. In the past, we had PTO driven machines. It's been 15-20 years ago. I think those are pretty old machines now, but those were a PTO driven rod, and the hydraulic version is much slower. It's much more consistent. We're running maybe 80 to 100 tops RPM on your cutter rods. It basically, the rod is spinning backwards, and it's basically just grabbing, that sharp edge will grab the root and pull it clean from the dirt. So you just want to have a good sharp edge on your rod, have it run slow, have it run shallow. It'll grab that root and it'll strip it clean from the dirt, and you have less dirt you bring into your windrow. Does everyone understand me okay? I know I have a very poor American accent. So the tray tables on the back, we have any configuration. You can that you might require. We have moving trays that can move from one side to the left to the right, and reverse direction of the belt. We have one where it can become a center dump or a side dump, and it's a switch you hit, it moves the tray over, and then the belt will reverse directions. So if you're going between a big combine and maybe a small Columbo, if you need a small single windrow, that's an option of a machine you can order with those moving trays. I think what else we want to go over. Machine operates, obviously, the best it operates is level. If you put it down on the ground and it's tilted too far forward or too far back, it's not going to operate as well. So the back gauge wheels you want to have fairly level. You don't want to have them tilted too far forward or back. And it does run better. These rear pulls run really well in float. There's a floater pin and a slot on the 3-point. And when you put it down, it should mostly rest on the machine gauge wheels, and it can articulate better on its own than being lifted by the tractor the whole time. It'll go through contours better. The machine will flex up, and it can keep it a better rod depth than the tractor trying to cradle it the whole time. So, yes. So they all come with 2 rods. The second rod is to help eliminate dirt. And I know there are conditions where you have stones that are just the right size that get stuck between the rods and they can break the rods. I also know if you have one row that's really deep, and all the rest of the rows are shallow, that second rod can wrap and cause some problems. So some of you take it off, and that's fine. It just doesn't eliminate dirt as easily if you don't have the second rod in. But the second rod you can pull out and swap for the first one. The first rod ought to always be the sharpest and best shape. Go ahead. Yes. The reason for that is if you have, the whole pickup head will move, it'll slide back. So there's a turnbuckle here and a couple bolts right here that are holding that plate flat. And the reason for that is in areas where they have, it's under irrigation, it's very heavy foliage or foliage, and it depends on the variety. Sugar beans don't seem to be that dense. Some varieties are extremely dense and bushy, and the material will get stuck between the pickup head and the toolbar, and so they'll spread it apart, and it'll open up that throat a little bit more. But when you have it further apart, those beams will go up on the second cutter rod, it'll drop on the ground, and then it's got to pick it off the ground. If it's right here in this position, it'll flow better.
If the soil is wet,
yeah.
Will it help to move the rods and your pickup finger? Because the soil moves slower.
Yeah.
The rods.
Yeah.
To make a bigger wave.
Yeah. And with the wet soil conditions, it shouldn't make too much difference. It's running your pickup head slower. It's running it higher off the ground. That'll be your biggest difference. If it's wet, you can go up 5 millimeters or centimeters above the soil, and that'll help drop the soil more because it's picking it up from a higher distance. It's grabbing it from right here and not raking the ground and picking up the soil with it. But I don't, in my personal experience, haven't noticed that it's any real improvement to separate that in wet conditions. One thing to really watch out for, I know these get lost over time, but you can go on our website and find them, is we have an operator's manual that comes with the machine. And I know no farmer ever reads these. But one thing I'd like to point out is on the back, there's a guide for conditions and your settings on your machine. So it's just a diagram that breaks out if it's hard conditions, rocky conditions, weedy conditions, wet, anything else. Start here, it's a simple guide, and then do minor adjustments from that point. If it needs to go a little lower, it needs to go a little higher, then that's usually a good starting point for producers. And there's even, the last few pages are troubleshooting techniques too. If there's some problems, then you can go through the troubleshooting and check those out. trying to think of any other options we could talk about. Obviously, the knife divider is a new design. We don't have one here today, but tractors are becoming more compact, more difficult to mount on we have a system now that's just a knife cutter that goes on front. And we've had it for many years, but it's something we've kind of reintroduced and pushed again. That'll go on front, has two big knives, and it cuts and separates around the tractor tires. And there's no need for a rear tire divider. And it's a very slick system. I don't think we've had too many issues. I know it does take some adjustment when you go down to the bottom of the contour and then you climb back out. Sometimes that can dive in, but there's some set screw adjustments that should be able to help lift that. It'd be good to be here when we're running. I was hoping to be here during harvest, but obviously it's late right now. So anyway, so that's a good option. We also have, if you ever were to want just pure knife dividers on front, we build those as well. They're not as common. We only sell maybe 4 or 5 a year in particular conditions, but those are a good option. And honestly, I think cost should be similar, except for the knives will cost additional, and the knives are sourced here locally. So those are good things to look into. The only thing that's required with that is a front 3-point on your tractor, and so it connects to a front 3-point. So, is there any other issues you're having with your one-steps that I could address in front of everybody? I know rods can break. The rods are honestly fairly expensive rods on our side. We have a specialty built or made for us. We have to order a train load at a time. But it's a high carbon count, high strength rod, and our goal with these particular rods is long wear life on them. It does make them a little more brittle, so if you hit really hard stones or you're going really deep in hard conditions, they can break. But we have couplers that you can buy. You can cut out a piece, slide in, or cut out the broken piece, slide in a new rod, and couple them together. Just make sure you have your long collars that lock those rods in tight, shanks. I don't know. Other than that, they're very simple machines. Typically, if you have a problem, it's something very simple. Try the guidebook in the back. Go on our website if you don't have a book, and start with some of the guidelines there, and then you can do minor adjustments from there. But remember, again, points are very, very important. Make sure they're sharp. Make sure your rod depth is